I'll be discussing on the topic of how Krishna's appearance reflects his pastimes. That means, how Krishna's appearance reflects his pastimes, his Leela. That means, in the Leela of Krishna's appearance, we'll discuss how the overall mood of Krishna and the way in which Krishna Leela does this very special combination of intertwining Krishna's greatness and sweetness that is described, that is demonstrated. So I'll start with a little bit context and then we will discuss this theme. That, as we know, Krishna, we know that Krishna descends periodically to the world, and the technical Sanskrit word for this is avatar. Avatar means one who descends from a higher domain to the worldly domain. Now, sometimes the translation used for this is incarnation. Now, when the infinite appears in the finite domain, both the finite time and the finite space become altered miraculously. And how that happens, and that is what the theme will discuss. But before we go into that, if you want to understand the concept of what is avatar, the English word is incarnation. However, incarnation is not the exact word. Sanskrit words many times, in fact, every language, if you translate a word from one language to another, it's not always easy to find a precise translation. So the word incarnation often has the sense of coming in flesh. Not always, but karna means flesh. So traditionally in Christian theology, the word was used for Jesus. According to Christian theology, at least according to some interpretations of Christian theology, God as Christ manifested in the humanity of Jesus. So Jesus came in flesh and bone, and he's considered also God in some ways, at least by some Christian denominations. And they refer to him as the incarnation. Now, in the Vedic understanding, when Krishna comes, he doesn't come. So he doesn't come that way. He remains divine always. So the word avatar is today quite common. The idea is the divine comes among this world. At the same time, he remains divine. So today, avatar is a common word. There are this whole series of movies about avatar, and now in video games and other things, the word avatar is used. And it conveys some kind of extension of oneself from one domain to another. So if somebody's playing a video game, then they have this idea that, okay, this is my avatar. This is your avatar on, we may have on Skype, even on Zoom, sometimes the word is used, but especially video games, the word is used. The idea is there is some aspect, some transition from one domain to another domain. So Krishna descends from the spiritual domain to the material domain, and that is avatar. Now, during Prabhupada's time, the word avatar was not at all common in the English lexicon. Now it has become somewhat common. So what Prabhupada does is he avoids double unfamiliarity. One is the unfamiliar concept, and then another is the unfamiliar term. So concepts are mental, terms are verbal. And Prabhupada uses the word incarnation, but he makes the unfamiliar familiar to us. How does he do that? By clarifying. First, he uses a familiar term, but then he highlights the dissimilarities. The dissimilarities between the good and between the positive and the negative. Between the way the Lord manifests in the world and the way the idea of God coming in flesh. So why is this important to understand? That when Krishna descends to this world, the Bhagavatam 4:8 describes the purposes why he descends. Now, Gita 4.8 talks about three things, that he comes to paritranaya sadhunam. So he comes to deliver the pious. Then he comes to vinashaya dushkritam, annihilate the vicious. And he comes to establish dharma, establish the rule of virtue. So when he comes for these purposes, let's try to understand how Krishna does this. So when Krishna comes in this world, let's see how does he go about doing this and what it means. Now we see this very fascinating dynamic when Krishna comes. So we'll see how these three purposes apply to Krishna's descent in Mathura. And then we look at the Gaudiya revelation about how Krishna appears even in Vrindavan. And there also his descent is remarkable. So now Krishna's descent in Mathura, if we look at it. So what all happens over here? There is quite a fascinating sequence. Nanda and Vasudeva and Devaki are in the prison, and they have suffered enormously when they have lost 6 of their children right in front of their eyes. And the 7th child they lost because they had an apparent miscarriage. And then finally Krishna appears. So Krishna first as Chaturbhuja. Chaturbhuja is as a 4-handed form he appears. And when he appears as a 4-handed form, what happens? He's clearly divine. Now, it's not just his form that is extraordinary. So even his knowledge is extraordinary. How is his knowledge extraordinary? He actually speaks like a full-grown adult with his parents. And when he's speaking with them, they see this is Krishna with a magnificent form. And Krishna is looking so splendorous. He's lit up the whole dark cellar in which the dungeon in which they have been entrapped. And on top of that, what does he do? He actually fills their hearts with joy. In fact, it is described that everybody over there, because before Krishna's appearance, during Krishna's appearance, all living beings become filled with joy. So, and when his parents, Vasudeva and Devaki, offer prayers to him, at that time, Krishna exhibits knowledge. In fact, more knowledge than what his parents have. He gives knowledge of his parents' previous lives. Now, I have written a book on reincarnation. So we talk about children who have sometimes past life memories. Now, there are some cases, and some of those cases are sensational and spectacular, where children remember their past lives. But there is no evidence of any child remembering the parents' past lives. So this is Krishna's omniscience. So Krishna's knowledge in one sense is neither ordinary nor extraordinary. It is actually, he exhibits omniscience over there. He's manifesting his divinity through the knowledge that he is describing. Omniscience that he knows even his parents' previous lives. And then after speaking that, suddenly something very strange happens. If you look in the series of verses, Vasudeva and Devaki just offered prayers to Krishna that how he's supreme, how he's divine. And then suddenly Devaki says, Krishna, if you are in this form, how will I hide you? How will I hide you over here? And now we may say, why does she have to hide Krishna? If Krishna is God and she's already seen Krishna's divine form, and she has actually offered prayers, and Krishna has exhibited his knowledge that characterizes the divine. So Even after that, why is Devaki afraid? So her fear seems very odd. And she says, Krishna, please change this form to a more ordinary form. Once you make a more ordinary form, then I'll be able to hide you somewhere. So actually, after she has seen Krishna's form as the divine, why would she be afraid? And that is the mystery of Krishna Lila. See, that is that Devaki is afraid because what happens is, in a devotee's heart, there is a sweet, you could say, devotional tension. One tension is a devotee appreciates Krishna's greatness and just wants to lose oneself in ecstatic remembrance and admiration. Oh, Krishna is so great. Krishna is so powerful. Krishna will take care of everything. That is one aspect. But at the same time, or you could put Krishna's divinity over here. But at the same time, what happens is, Krishna doesn't always act only as the divine. The Upanishads describe, the Vedantic texts actually describe Nara Leela Kaivalyam. The ultimate reality performs human-like pastimes. Kaivalya is a term to refer to the ultimate reality, and Nara Leela. And ultimately, reality performs human-like pastimes. And thus what happens is, when the devotee also sees Krishna's, a devotee on another thing, what happens is, devotee sees Krishna's apparent humanity and is eager, even anxious, to do some tangible service for Krishna. Some tangible service for Krishna. So if God is all complete, then what happens is that if he is complete and perfect, then I will feel, what can I do for him? But when Krishna comes as manifests as a small helpless baby, then it's my responsibility to protect him. So at one level, it is not just when Krishna manifests in that way. There are both ways. There is Krishna manifests according to the devotee's desire, and the devotee's desire develops according to Krishna's manifestation. So there is this devotional symbiosis. According to the symbiosis means that these two different emotions go together. Or a more symbiosis means each of them feed another. So that one side feeds the other. So devotee's disposition and Krishna, there's a two-way like this, we could say, based on devotee's disposition and Krishna's manifestation. So Krishna, when he manifests his godlike form, his divine form, a devotee is just astounded in admiration. So sometimes it is a devotee. So the Krishna's manifestation leads to devotee's disposition, and devotee's disposition also leads Krishna to appear in a particular manifestation. So why are we discussing this? Trying to unravel the mysterious events that happen at Krishna's appearance. And through that, we'll try to understand how they reflect in Krishna Lila at large and how they relate with us in our life. So there is a symbiotic reciprocation between devotee's disposition and Krishna's manifestation. And what does this mean? That means a devotee doesn't just want to admire the Lord. A devotee wants to serve the Lord. And the Lord manifests accordingly. And when the Lord manifests in a particular way, the devotee's heart also responds accordingly. So Devaki is his mother. So naturally, as a mother, she recognizes his divinity, but at the same time, she wants to reciprocate love with Krishna as a mother. And thus what happens is, she starts becoming anxious. And then Krishna manifests in a small, almost helpless form. It's fascinating that after Krishna manifests in the two-handed baby form, Krishna doesn't speak one word. Throughout the whole time when Vasudeva is taking Krishna across the Yamuna, it is Krishna doesn't speak anything. Because after all, a baby doesn't learn to speak. Before that, Krishna is speaking in a complete adult voice. So what happens is, when Devaki, she has a desire to serve, and Krishna manifests appropriately in a small form which seems apparently helpless. But before Krishna manifests that helpless form, what does Krishna do? Krishna instructs Vasudeva, okay, take me out and place me in Nanda Maharaj's house. And then you come back and don't tell anyone. So what is Krishna doing over here is, Krishna has already manifested himself as the divine. He has revealed who he is. And then he goes into the next phase where he withdraws his divinity. And so what does Krishna do in one sense? Krishna sometimes reveals his divinity and Krishna sometimes conceals his divinity based on what will lead to the maximum reciprocation of love, whatever will further his pastimes. So let's look at this a little bit. Yeah. So Krishna's divinity is revealed to reinforce Shraddha, that is faith. So when Devaki is anxious, oh, Devaki is fearful, Kamsa has killed so many of my children. So at that time, first Krishna manifests his divinity. And when we appreciate Krishna's greatness, at that time our faith is reinforced. But then for the reciprocation of rasa, Krishna's divinity is concealed. And when that divinity is concealed, at that time rasa is facilitated. How is rasa facilitated? Because then then Devaki can feel that this is my child and I have to protect her. So that means, this is when we think about what is Maya. There is Maya works in, Maya basically means that which is not. So things are often far more complicated than they appear to be. And Maya makes there the difference between how things appear to be and what they actually are. And there is the divine Maya refers to Yoga Maya basically. And then once we go through that Yoga Maya, we appreciate Krishna at increasingly deeper levels. Let's try to understand what this means. So there are two functions of Maya. Actually, you could say there are two dimensions of Maya, one in the material world and one in the spiritual world. So in the material world, what does Maya do? It makes the incomplete seem complete. What does it mean? That means we all are captivated by certain things. Somebody, an alcoholic, is captivated by alcohol. A person in the mode of passion may be attracted by some sensual object. Similarly, we are attracted by certain things. And when we are attracted by those things, we think, if I just get this thing, my life will be complete. My life will be perfect. So just looking for that one thing missing, so that thing we feel will give us completeness. But in the spiritual world, what does Maya do? Maya makes the complete seem incomplete. Krishna is all perfect. Krishna is all complete. But what does Maya do? Maya makes Krishna appear to be incomplete. How is that? Devotee thinks that Yashoda, Devaki, Vasudeva, they all think that Krishna is just a small baby. Without our protection, how will he survive? How will he survive? And thus, the devotee feels actively driven to serve the Lord. So that means there are multiple levels at which Maya acts. And Yoga Maya, which acts in Krishna Leela, is categorically different from Mahamaya, which acts in this world. So when Devaki is feeling fearful, her fear after she has seen Krishna's divinity, why would she feel fearful like that? That is Yoga Maya. That is the arrangement of the divine illusory energy or the divine dimension of the illusory energy by which she forgets. And in that forgetfulness of Krishna's divinity, there is increased absorption in Krishna. There is a deeper connection with Krishna. So see, there is a difference in understanding this. Let's look at one important point, that when you talk about forgetting, forgetfulness / remembrance. Now we often say that in the world, forgetfulness, we have forgotten who we are, we have forgotten who Krishna is, and we are thus in the material illusory world. So there is one thing which is forgetting Krishna, and this is what characterizes material existence. Once I was giving a class where I said that it was a class to new people in India. I said, the Brajavasis don't consider Krishna to be God. And as one person in the audience, he said, I also don't consider Krishna to be God. Well, okay. I told him that yes, there is a difference. The Brajavasis, they're forgetting Krishna's divinity to become more absorbed in his personality, in his personal dimension, in him as he's relating with them as a child, as a lover, as a friend, whoever it is. So this is spiritual existence, and not just spiritual existence. This is the summit of spiritual existence. That is Golok Vrindavan. So the devotee doesn't forget Krishna in Golok Vrindavan. Devaki has not forgotten Krishna. She is remembering Krishna, but she has that knowledge of Krishna's divinity has become eclipsed by her relationship with her, by the particular flavor of the relationship she has with Krishna. And she feels very intimately connected with him. So actually, here it's a vital relational principle to be understood, that whenever you need a close relationship, so how do close relationships come about? Actually, it is vulnerability that brings proximity. Vulnerability in general in human relationships also. Suppose we are working in a particular field, and there is an expert who has solutions to all problems. They have solutions to all problems. We admire them. Whenever we go to them, whatever problem we have, they do this. And then we find that sometimes they have some problems. They say, we are facing this problem, and they ask us, what do you think we should do? If I think if we do this, this will be the problem. If we do this, this will be the problem. If we do this, this will be the problem. So now there are two possibilities. If we are not aware of their expertise, then what will happen is they're exhibiting their vulnerability. Their exhibiting vulnerability will make us think, hey, maybe this person, that will lead to disrespect from us. Hey, this whole people made out this is such a big person, has all solutions to all problems, but this person is just like me. He doesn't know anything. So if we are not aware of their expertise, then just a big hue and cry, big prestige, or a big bluff and bravado is being done about them. That's what we'll think. We will not, our respect for them will go down, we could say. But instead of disrespect, we'll say respect will decrease. This person is not that great. But if we are aware, if you already know this person is that great, then what happens is, because of vulnerability, person is such a powerful person, and yet they are sharing this with me. Yet this person is revealing this problem to me. Then what happens by that? By that, proximity comes up. Even intimacy comes up. Why does intimacy come up? Oh, this person trusts me so much. Now, actually, this person is such a great person. They can solve problems. And yet when they are facing a problem, they're actually asking me, consulting me. That means they're so good. They're so good, and yet they're asking me something. They're opening their heart to me. So that brings proximity. That brings intimacy. So at one level, Krishna is all powerful. Krishna is divine. And Krishna doesn't need anything from anyone. But if Krishna always acts as the divine, then the proximity doesn't come. Oh, he's God. He knows everything. He has everything. What can I do for him? So Krishna manifests vulnerability. How does he manifest vulnerability? He just acts like a small, helpless boy. And not even a boy, a small infant. And then Vasudeva feels anxious, Devaki feels anxious. And that is how Vasudeva feels driven. I have to do whatever it takes to take Krishna from here to Vrindavan. And Krishna does that. So Krishna, when he comes to the world, he's doing multiple things simultaneously. In fact, this point of vulnerability leading to proximity, this is something which is, in one sense, in the world of superheroes also this came out. The character Superman was made, I think, in 1930s, 1937, something like that. And then as this character started becoming more and more popular, they started making Superman more and more powerful. And as they started making Superman more and more powerful, eventually he could just raise his hand and blow up not just satellites, but entire planets. And as the power of Superman started increasing more and more, the popularity started going down. Why? Because there's no tension, no suspense. Now, Superman he can do anything. He's all powerful. So what happened is, they realized his popularity went down. So as power increased, the popularity decreased. And then, just to create some suspense, they made this, that the Superman was vulnerable to kryptonite. And because of that vulnerability, then his enemies exploited vulnerability. And then he has to protect himself from it. And then that creates excitement, that creates tension. So it's not just proximity, but vulnerability also creates excitement. Without vulnerability, there is no excitement. If Vasudeva and Devaki are thinking Krishna is God, then they have no anxiety. And there is no anticipation, there is no excitement, there is no suspense. How will Krishna be taken from Vrindavan, from Mathura to Vrindavan? How will he be saved? And thus what happens is, Krishna, he churns the devotee's heart. He churns the devotee's heart, and for that, for churning the devotee's heart, Krishna hides his divinity. So that goes back to the Yoga Maya. What does she do? She makes the complete seem incomplete. So through the agency of Yoga Maya, that God who is omnipotent, who can do anything, he seems to be almost impotent, like an infant. The baby can't do anything. And for everything, the baby is dependent on his or her parents. This is what Krishna does. So when Krishna manifests in the world, what is he doing? He is actually manifesting rasa in such a way that everywhere the heart gets churned. So on one side, Krishna tells Vasudeva and Devaki that you take me to Vrindavan. And before that, Devaki says, please manifest in a two-handed form, not a four-handed form, so that I can conceal you. Now he addresses her anxiety and he says, actually, you won't be able to conceal me over here. So you take me from here to Vrindavan. Now this is the overall, this idea that Krishna actually manifests vulnerability so that the heart can be churned and devotional emotions can be established. So there is an external understanding. We discussed this verse 4.8. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya dushkritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. I discussed this verse, but this verse also has an internal implication. Now we know externally Krishna came to, we will focus on the external and internal meanings. Now external meaning is what? The external meaning is, say Krishna comes to Paritranaya sadhunam, so he delivers the Pandavas. And then what does he do? He neutralizes the Kauravas. And many other demons are there. And other demons. And then he establishes the rule of Yudhishthir, who is virtuous, of the virtuous Yudhishthir. So this is Gita 4.8 at an external level. Paritranaya sadhunam vinashaya dushkritam. But this same also applies at an internal level. An internal level, this is actually indicated in, this leads to Gita 4.9. In 4.9, what does Krishna say? That Janma karma chame divyam evam yo viti tatvataha tyaktva deham punarjanma naitimameti so Arjuna. So in the internal meaning, what does Krishna do? Krishna delivers the devotees from the distress of separation from him, of forgetfulness of him. So a devotee, depending on the level of the devotee may be, so delivers the devotee from this distress of separation. And then the Lord neutralizes the forces, in mostly their impurities, that separate the devotee from the Lord. That vinashaya dushkritam. And then dharma samsthapanarthaya, that is establishes the paradharma of prema, of love for Krishna, of the supreme love. That love is there, and that love becomes manifested more and more in the devotee's heart. And that love is not there, and the love starts becoming manifested. So when Krishna appears, from an external perspective, he's establishing dharma in the world. From an internal perspective, he's establishing prema in the devotee's heart. And as that prema is established, then tyaktva deham punarjanma naiti mameti swarjuna. Such a devotee comes back to Krishna. The devotee comes back to Krishna. So let's look at this, how these two aspects are manifested in Krishna Lila. Yeah. Now, this one slide actually is going to summarize what I'm going to say in the remaining class. So I'll try to make this full screen. You see this. See, the conventional narrative of how Krishna appears is, conventional narrative means the general understanding of Krishna's appearance. It is that Krishna appears in Mathura. And that is what is described in the Bhagavatam. However, that is not the only thing that is described in the Bhagavatam. There is much more that is described. Just as Radharani is hinted at in the Bhagavatam. Her full name is not mentioned, her activities are not mentioned explicitly, but there is much more. There is this one special gopi. So from that description, the Acharyas have revealed Radharani and her glories. So similarly, Krishna appears in Mathura, that is the conventional understanding. But the Gaudiya narrative, the Gaudiya Vaishnava Acharyas, by churning the Bhagavatam, they describe that Krishna appears in both Mathura and Vrindavan simultaneously. And in both places, he's churning the devotee's heart so that their consciousness can rise higher and higher till that they become ecstatically united with Krishna in love. So now he appears in Mathura. Now the linear narrative of the Bhagavatam, if we just take the literal text of the Bhagavatam without churning it, what is described as Krishna appears in Mathura and then he's transported by Vasudeva to Vrindavan. That's the understanding. But the Gaudiya understanding is somewhat different. And this is not just a Gaudiya tradition's understanding, it is actually an understanding which can be, which is also based in scripture, but it is somewhat hidden. It needs to be churned out by careful exploration or mining of the Bhagavatam's text. So what happens is, so we'll be discussing, so Jiva Goswami explains certain things, Vishwanath Thakur explains certain things, and in the Goswami literature in general, there is this further explanation of what happens. So Jiva Goswami, for example, in the Gopal Champu says that Krishna is born in two places. He's born in Mathura as the son of Vasudeva and Devaki, and simultaneously he's born in Vrindavan as the son of Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda. And he is born in both places simultaneously. What happens is that Now Yashoda and Nanda, they are actually somewhat older than Vasudeva and Devaki. We know Vasudeva and Devaki, they had, of course, 6, 7. Krishna was their 8th child. In that sense, they were quite, they're not entirely young, but still they were relatively young. Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda, they were much older. And for Yashoda, it was a long and difficult process of delivery. And thus she's exhausted and she's fallen asleep. And not only is she fallen asleep, but even those assisting her, the midwives and the other ladies of Vrindavan who are there with her, they also fall asleep. And Krishna appears at midnight. And because of Yoga Maya, everybody not only falls asleep, but everybody falls asleep and forgets the specific details of what has happened. So they know, okay, she's delivered a child, but they fall asleep after that. So what happens, he describes, is that actually Nanda and Yashoda, she has 2 children, not 1, but 2 children. One is Krishna, so Krishna appears simultaneously, once in Mathura and once in Vrindavan. Not once, one manifestation of Krishna is in Mathura and one manifestation is in Vrindavan, and both appear. And then when Krishna, who appears in Vrindavan, there is practically no pastime except very occasionally within a particular pastime where Krishna manifests his 4-handed form. Usually Krishna in Vrindavan is like a playful child. So Krishna in Vrindavan appears as a two-handed infant baby, bluish black complexion, the normal form of baby Krishna. Whereas Krishna in Mathura appears in 4-handed form. And when Devaki prays, Krishna, please, I can't hide this 4-handed form, appear in 2-handed form. So then Jiva Goswami explains that Yoga Maya, Krishna's agency of divine illusion, she takes Krishna from Vrindavan and she mystically transports him to Mathura. And thus the 4-handed form changes into 2-handed form. But it's not just the 4-handed form changing into 2-handed form. It is actually 2-handed form of Krishna coming from Vrindavan to Mathura by mystical transportation. You could say some kind of divine teleportation. And then that 2-handed form is taken by Krishna from Mathura by Vasudeva, from Mathura to Vrindavan. So this is one way this dynamism happens. Now there's another way. Now there are different ways different acharyas have explained, and this refers to kalpa bhed. Kalpa bhed means during different manifestations of Krishna at different times, the dynamism happens differently. And we'll discuss how in each of these, the churning of the heart happens, which is by which the rasa is experienced, the increased absorption in Krishna is there. Now, the second explanation is, this is largely attributed to Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains, so the first is Jiva Goswami and Gopal Champu. The second is Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explaining in his Sarartha Darshini, primarily. That is his Bhagavatam commentary. So he explains that when Krishna is being, so Krishna appears in Mathura, Krishna appears in Vrindavan. And both of them are Krishna, but at the same time they have different moods. It's like one person, different personalities. One person, different personalities, different moods, different dispositions. So when Krishna appears this way, at that time, the two of them, they are separate. And as they are separate, Krishna in Vrindavan is in Vrindavan, and Krishna is born in Mathura. Sometimes he's called as Vasudev Krishna, because he's the son of Vasudev. So this Vasudev Krishna is being taken by Vasudev across the Yamuna river. At that time, Yamuna becomes very, very stormy. And as the Yamuna becomes very stormy, at that time, now small babies, actually they don't have like a very heavy weight. Like small babies, newborn babies, they weigh less than a kg also. So what happens is, she doesn't, Vasudeva is a Kshatriya warrior. He's very strong, and he's also in a storm. There is thunderbolt over there, lightning in the sky. There is rain falling. There are waves just streaming. So he carries the basket first in his arms, but then the water of Yamuna starts rising. As the water of the Yamuna starts rising, he wants to keep his baby safe. So he raises Krishna and places him on his head. And as Krishna is placed on his head, at that time, what happens? That he's carrying Krishna and he's not able to see Krishna at that time. When Krishna is in the baby was in the basket in front of him, he can see him. But Krishna is in the basket above him, he doesn't see him anywhere. And then as he is walking through the water has risen, the water has come up to his chest now. He's walking through the water and suddenly he feels something is wrong and takes the basket down and looks. To his horror, the basket is empty. Now, when did Krishna fall? He looks around and doesn't see Krishna anywhere. He becomes frantic with anxiety. And he's thinking, for 8 long years we have waited, we have suffered so much, we have done so much austerities, we have endured Kamsa's atrocities. And after this wonderful divine child was to be born. And he's appeared, and is it because of my carelessness that he's going to die now, that he's dead? What can I do? He starts shaking the water here and there, desperately looking, can I find Krishna somewhere? And as he's desperately searching, suddenly he sees Krishna, completely unaffected, floating on the water. And he's immensely relieved. Quickly picks up Krishna. And then, because it's raining so much, Krishna is already wet. But he doesn't have anything to dry Krishna also. Immediately puts Krishna in the basket and holds the basket to his chest, still above the water, and starts going as fast as possible through the water. So at that time, when Krishna has fallen out of the basket, it's described that when Krishna enters into the Yamuna, that's the time when Vasudeva Krishna, he enters into the into Yamuna, and the manifestation who comes out is Vrindavan Krishna. Now Vrindavan Krishna is the Krishna who was born to Yashoda. So Yogamaya arranges that Vasudeva Krishna falls in and Vrindavan Krishna comes out. Now what does it mean? Now the further acharyas in the Gaudiya tradition explain that actually it is not that Vasudeva Krishna falls down and he drowns. It's not like that. It's Vasudeva Krishna and Vrindavan Krishna are at one level the same person, but they are different moods. Their different flavors are prominent. So as soon as Krishna enters into Vrindavan, he doesn't manifest the Vasudeva Krishna mood. The Vasudeva Krishna mood is like a very sober mood. He's a Kshatriya, he's a warrior. He fights, he rules, he legislates. He doesn't officially become the ruler, but still he takes on the responsibilities of a ruler. But that Krishna is very different from Vrindavan Krishna. So then that's where Vrindavan Krishna is taken, and he places Vrindavan Krishna by Yashoda's side, and it's very dark. And he makes sure that his arrival over there is not detected by anyone. Krishna has told him, do this very secretly. Do this very secretly. Why? Because in one sense, they don't want anyone to know, or especially Kamsa to know, that this person, that Krishna is over here, that the child born to Nanda Maharaj is actually the son of Vasudeva. Because although at one level Kamsa was a tyrannical ruler, but at another level, he was mostly tyrannical toward those whom he perceived as his threats, for him. And the cowherd people of Vrindavan were not a threat for him. So it's only if he felt that they were harboring Krishna, who was prophesied to be the person who will kill him, then he would perceive them as a threat, and then he would become very aggressive. So knowing this, what did Krishna do? Krishna had told Vasudeva, don't tell anyone. And Vasudeva came discreetly, quietly tiptoed into the house of Nanda Maharaj. That time everybody was asleep, and he quietly placed Krishna over there. And in the darkness, everything was blurred. But so there is another baby over here, and he picked up the baby, and he said, yeah, this is the baby that Krishna had told me. He took that baby and went back, and that baby was Yogamaya. That baby was the goddess, the Devi, who later on slipped out from Krishna's eyes, from Kamsa's hands rather, slipped out from Kamsa's hands, and then she ascended to the sky. That's a whole different story. But here the point is that this is the second way things happen. The third way that is described is that actually when Vasudev brings Krishna with him, he places Krishna on the bed next to Yashoda. And Yashoda has had two children. But in that darkness, he's not able to see very clearly. He places one child, and then he says, oh, there's another child over here, picks it up. Now, as soon as he places this one child, he places Vasudev Krishna down. So Vasudev Krishna and Vrindavan Krishna become one. Vasudev Krishna and Vrindavan Krishna become one. And when they become one, what happens is, so there's another child over here, he picks up the other child and goes back. But the idea is that Krishna is always there in Vrindavan also. Now, we may say, what is the need for this whole complicated narrative? Why do the Gaudiya Acharyas have to describe this whole thing? That now there are many verses which from the scriptures which can be used to substantiate this. But why have this whole, what is the need for this substantiation? Why the need for this deeper analysis? There's a very serious need for this. So it describes three things over there. This is basically substantiating, we could say, substantiating scripture. So there are many indirect verses. There are some points I'm not going to because of lack of time. That the Puranas say that Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. So now, normally this is said to refer to how when Krishna is in the material, Krishna leaves Vrindavan and tells the gopis, I'll come back. So it is said in that context that Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. But Jiva Goswami explains that if Krishna is born only outside Vrindavan, then this statement that Krishna never leaves Vrindavan becomes falsified, because he was right in the beginning never in Vrindavan. He appeared elsewhere and then he came to Vrindavan. But he says, no, Krishna never leaves Vrindavan because Krishna is born in Vrindavan. And then also, he says, the Bhagavatam refers to Krishna as the son of, as Nanda Maharaj's son, as Nanda's son. So now, why would he refer to, why would the Bhagavatam refer to Krishna as Nanda's son? Now we all also say Yashodananda, Nandananda. So now we may say this is just conventional. Krishna has many names and Krishna can be referred by these various names. So he's actually born to Vasudev, but because he was fostered by Nanda and Yashoda, that's why he's also referred to Nanda and Yashoda as the son of Nanda and Yashoda. But he says it's not that simple, because where is this referred to? There are many places, but there is one very significant incident where Garga Muni is the official priest of Vasudeva and Devaki, of the Vasudev's dynasty actually, the Yadu dynasty, and he comes to Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda, and he tells Nanda Maharaj, your son was previously the son of Vasudeva. So Jiva Goswami, so what happens is Garga says to Nanda that your son was previously the son of Vasudeva. Now this whole statement, there are like pages upon pages of purport written to this particular statement, but let's focus here on the point of your son. So why would Gargacharya refer to Nanda, to Krishna as your son to Nanda? He could have just said this boy was previously the son of Vasudeva. This boy was previously the son of Vasudeva. But he says your son. That means he's saying that Krishna is not just circumstantially the son of Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda. Circumstantially means he was placed under their care and they took care of him. And that's why he's their son. No, he is eternally their son. And how is he eternally their son? Because he also appears in Vrindavan. And he appears in Vrindavan. What does he do? He actually appears to reciprocate with the love of the Vrajavasis. Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda also want Krishna as their child. And not just that they get the opportunity to take care of him as their child, but they want to have him as their own child. And it is this pastime that is described in Gopal Champu. How Yashoda, when she initially, because Yashoda and Nanda are quite elderly, they feel we will never be able to have a child. And they accept that. But then suddenly a desire starts coming in their heart. We want a child. And we don't want any ordinary child. We want the Supreme Lord as our child. We want a child just like Vishnu, like the Supreme Lord. And they perform special austerities. And then Krishna appears through a whole mystical process. He appears in Yashoda's womb. And from there, he appears into this world. So basically, what does the Gaudiya tradition do? The Gaudiya tradition explains the centrality of Vrindavan in Krishna Leela. That Vrindavan is not just a place where Krishna went in his childhood and performed some playful activities. Vrindavan is the highest abode of the spiritual world. And Vrindavan is the place where the most intimate pastimes between Krishna and his devotees are manifested. So Krishna appears in Vrindavan, Krishna performs pastimes in Vrindavan, and then the Vrindavan Krishna never leaves Vrindavan. When Akrura comes to take Krishna out of Vrindavan, Krishna bathes in the Yamuna. And when he bathes in the Yamuna, Vrindavan Krishna comes out and stays in Vrindavan. It is only Vasudeva Krishna that goes back to Mathura. So the idea over here is Krishna is always there with a devotee. Krishna is always there, with the Vrajavasis. He's always there with the Vrajavasis. And why does Krishna stay with Vrindavan, with the Vrajavasis? As this manifestation of Vrindavan Krishna? Because he cannot bear separation from his devotees. Just as the devotees can't bear separation from Krishna, Krishna can't bear separation from his devotees. So I'll conclude with the one last point now, that we could say levels in appreciating Krishna's role, we could say, in our lives. Now, initially, the first is the first is initial level, we could say, is that when people go to a temple or people go to any holy place and they say, God, I have this problem, I have that problem, please fix this for me, I can't do this, please help me do this. So there the mood is, what is God doing for me? That is the mood of a person. Initially, people go to God and they pray, please do this for me, please, can you fix this problem for me, can you fix this problem for me? Then eventual is that, what am I doing for Krishna? Prabhupada says that when can we know when we are Krishna conscious? When actually we see Krishna, and when we go in front of the deities, we think, what am I doing for Krishna? How am I serving Krishna? That is the next level. But that is not the only level. Then there is a reciprocal level over here. The reciprocal level is what? Both what is Krishna doing for me, but this is not so much in terms of in the material sense, but in the spiritual sense. So this is more in terms of materially how Krishna is fulfilling my desires or fixing my problems. But at a spiritual level, what is happening is that Krishna is constantly acting for a devotee's welfare. And this vision is quite counterintuitive. What does it mean, counterintuitive? It's not so easy to perceive. That the Gaudiya Acharya has described that when Krishna leaves Vrindavan and goes away, in one sense he never goes away, in another sense he goes away. But even when he goes away, he's constantly thinking about Vrindavan. He's constantly feeling separation from the Vrajavasis. and he's constantly longing to, he's thinking about how to protect the Vrajavasis. So for the Vrajavasis, so I talked about this verse, Paritranaya sadhuna vinashaya dushkritam dharma samsthapanarthaya sambhavami yuge yuge. So actually, when Krishna goes away from Vrindavan, this is this third level, we'll try to understand how this Gita 4.8 at the Krishna goes away from the Vrajavasis. So how is he protecting the devotees when he's going away from them? Protecting the devoted? Actually, when he goes away from Vrindavan, he goes deeper into the hearts of his devotees. Because he goes away, he is actually externally gone away, but internally he's gone deeper into the hearts of his devotees. So that's how the Vrajavasis feel greater the presence of Krishna in their hearts, even when Krishna has gone away. And that's how they actually experience Krishna's presence. And then he says he disempowers, he empowers, disempowers, and neutralizes the demoniac. So now how does Krishna neutralize the demoniac? Actually, when Krishna goes away from Vrindavan, now if we see geographically, Vrindavan and Mathura are not very far away. And if we know how much the Vrajavasis are separated, they feel separation from Krishna, and Krishna feels separation from the Vrajavasis. So why don't the Vrajavasis go to meet Krishna? Or why doesn't Krishna go to meet the Vrajavasis? Actually, Krishna wants to protect the Vrajavasis from the demoniac people. So he is eventually going to neutralize the demoniac. But before that, he wants to neutralize that influence. He wants to prevent the demoniac people from troubling the Vrajavasis. So what does he do for that purpose? He tells the Vrajavasis, he tells Nanda Maharaj that if my enemies come to know that you are so close to me, then they will attack me. And therefore, what I should do is, let us have no connection with each other. Sorry?
No.
So let us have no contact. Let everybody think that actually, Krishna, you are not with me. That actually we have no connection. Just because I was in danger, so I was taken and kept with the Vrajavasis for some time. And now I've come back and now there is no connection between us. And in this way, what people will think, they will not trouble us, they will trouble the Vrajavasis at all. And then eventually when Krishna goes from Vrindavan to Dwarka also, why does he go to Dwarka? The external reason is he wants to protect the Mathuravasis, the Yadus, from being attacked by his enemies. But the internal reason is Krishna wants to protect the Vrajavasis. Because whenever the armies pass by, while coming to Mathura, they often come via Vrindavan area. And the Vrajavasis' lives are disrupted because these huge armies are marching by. So he doesn't want that disruption for the Vrajavasis. So in one sense, Krishna goes away from Vrindavan, not because he has rejected the Vrajavasis, not because he doesn't care for the Vrajavasis. He goes away from Vrindavan to take greater care of Vrindavan, to take greater care of the Vrajavasis. And he goes far away to Dwarka so that his enemies will not come anywhere near Vrindavan. They will come only to him to search for him in Dwarka. And thus he neutralizes, eventually will destroy all the demoniac people. But he also neutralizes them by taking them far away from Vrindavan. So when Krishna is, even when he's away from Vrindavan, he has not forgotten Vrindavan. He remembers the Vrajavasis and he's thinking about their welfare, even when he's not actually there to protect them. And through it all, what is he doing is, he's entering deeper and deeper into their hearts. And they are entering deeper and deeper into his hearts. So Krishna says, Maite teshu chapyaham. The devotees exist in me and I exist in them. This divine interpenetration of the Krishna in the hearts of the devotees and the devotees in the heart of Krishna. Now, this is the summit of devotion. And Krishna descends to this world to demonstrate the summit of devotion, so that everybody can become very intimately attracted to him, to become absorbed in him, and thus ultimately to be united in love with him. So for all of us, at whatever level of devotion we may be, by understanding Krishna Leela, if even a spark of our attraction for Krishna increases, then we can become closer to him. We can become more intimately united with him. And thus we can pray on the occasion of Janmashtami that Krishna manifest in our heart and increase our attraction to him. So that is the ultimate purpose and perfection of Janmashtami, that Krishna manifest in our hearts and increase our attraction to him more and more. So I'll summarize. Today I discussed on the theme of how Krishna's appearance reflects his pastimes, or his janma reflects his karma. So in that connection we discussed so two things we discussed broadly, rather three themes. First is how when Krishna appears, there's a divine, the infinite is appearing in the world of finite. But what is he doing? There's a purpose. He appears to establish dharma, to disempower the wicked and to empower the devoted. But how does he do that? So external level, he's doing it in Mathura, but at internal level, he's doing it for his devotees, both in Mathura and Vrindavan. We discussed the dual aspects of Krishna's appearance, that why is Devaki anxious after she has seen Krishna's four-handed form? Because actually in her heart there is this churning going on. See, when we appreciate God's greatness, we become filled with admiration for him. But when we start seeing Krishna's apparent humanity, that's when the desire to serve him, to do something for him, becomes manifested more and more. So Maya in this world makes the sense objects which are incomplete, which are inadequate, which cannot give us fulfillment. It makes us feel that they will give us fulfillment. In contrast, in Krishna Leela, Krishna, who is all complete, he appears incomplete, so that a devotee feels eager to do something for Krishna. And that's how a devotee moves forward in their relationship with Krishna. And now, with respect to this, we discussed two things, that how Krishna appears in Vrindavan simultaneously with how he appears in Mathura. And we discussed various modalities in which that dual appearance unfolds. And the underlying principle is that Krishna is churning the hearts of the Vrajvasis and churning the hearts of the Mathuravasis and drawing them closer to him, to a more intimate union with him. So levels we discuss. Initially, we approach God. What can God do for me? But the next level is we start thinking, what can I do for God? And then as our consciousness becomes spiritualized, then we start seeing how Krishna is already acting in multiple ways, doing multiple things. When Krishna is taking himself first away from Vasudeva and Devaki, it is not that he is in danger. Actually, he wants to have closer, intimate relationship with the Brajvasis. He wants to give Nanda Maharaj and Yashoda experience of heightened devotion through separation. And then Krishna, even when he goes away from Vrindavan, he's still thinking of the Brajvasis and their welfare. Thus, when we understand these multiple levels at which the reciprocation between Krishna and his devotees are happening, then we can also become attracted to him. And in this way, gradually become more and more intimately united with him. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Is there any quick reflection or question before we finish? Happy to be of service. Yes, the Gaudiya tradition does describe a lot of intimate pastimes between Krishna and his devotees. Yes, Athena. Yeah.
Hare Krishna Chaitanya Charan Prabhu, Dandavat Pranams.
Happy
Thank you. I was wondering who was going to speak on this auspicious day, and they chose the best person. I'm so glad you're on this channel. Thank you so much. Haribo. I just want to echo some of the things that have been said. I love how you explain things, and you're just so well read. And I had heard about Yashoda Mai having twins, and I'd heard that one, but I never heard of when they're going across the Now it was the basket being empty, and then when we're pulling Krishna out, it was Vrindavan Krishna. So that was a new rendition that I had heard. So thank you so much. I thought I had a couple of really quick philosophical questions, if that's okay. I love just the chance to pick your brain to help me as I explain to others. In the very beginning, you had talked about reincarnation. And of course, we know from our Shastra that reincarnation is a truth. And even in Bhagavad Gita, after many births and deaths, I think in 7th chapter, one surrenders onto me. So that's evidence. But when you're explaining this to one coming from the Abrahamic religions where there is no concept of reincarnation, and you give examples of children who remember their past lives, think their parents or someone else, knowing their old family's home. One thing that I've heard or said, counter argument is, how do you know that they're not possessed by a ghost? That is why that they remember their old house, or that is why they think their parents are someone else. Do you have any thoughts on that?
It's a very non-Janmashtami question.
I'm sorry, I
okay.
can leave. So we don't have to.
I'll quickly answer it. Yeah. See, evidences, each praman can point to something higher. That means that, see, for example, when in Vedic self-understanding, there is the body, there is the mind, and the soul. So beyond the physical level, there are two levels of reality. There's the mind and there's the soul. Now, if we look at most Western philosophy, they often talk about the mind-matter duality. And there is not a very clear understanding of the difference between the mind and the soul. So anything beyond matter is what they call as the mind. So the point is that at one level, when we look at empirical evidence, anything that is not explainable by physical phenomena, or rather by physical mechanisms, by the laws of physics as are understood by mainstream science, what it means is that there is something higher going on. There is some higher reality going on. Now, what is the exact nature of that higher reality? That cannot be inferred only from that empirical phenomena. The empirical phenomena simply points to something higher. It's like, this is a particular box, and is there a world outside this box? So in some ways, you could say that the world as is examined by modern physics or modern science at large, it's like we are in a vast balloon, and within that we have a very powerful flashlight, and that powerful flashlight, it can't see beyond, it can't go beyond the material of the balloon. It can show us everything inside, a lot of things inside this balloon. It can't go beyond that. But nonetheless, if something hits the balloon from outside, we can sense it. Hey, something hit this balloon. It's shaken. But the flashlight can't show us that. So the point I'm making is that empirical phenomena can't illumine the nature of non-empirical reality. They can only point to the nature of, point to that something non-empirical is existing. So that's the first point. So yes, when somebody is remembering some past lives, something which is not explainable by any normal means, then there is something paranormal happening over there. Now, what is the nature of paranormal happening? That is something which requires further exploration. So from the perspective of modern mainstream science, even ghosts are not something which are accepted, that somebody is being possessed by ghosts or by some higher beings or by some lower beings, whatever it is. None of that is accepted. So at a basic level, that there is a pointing to the possibility or even the reality of something paranormal. Now, going further, generally speaking, whenever there are possessions, the person behaves completely different from their normal personality. Whenever a person is possessed, at that time, say, the person may even speak in a language different from their normal language. A person may be a child and they speak like an adult. So that is possession. So possession means basically the soul, another soul is entering into that person's being, and temporarily taking over that person's consciousness or that person's cognitive abilities, person's functioning abilities. So that's possession basically. So in contrast, when a child remembers a past life, so possession is something like this. You'll see over here. This is, I have a whole seminar on ghosts. And so there is a body, mind, and soul, or you could say soul, subtle body, and gross body. So normally, what is a ghost? A ghost is a being who is separated from the ghost body. So this is a ghost. That means the soul and the subtle body is there. The gross body is fallen, it's dead, because the person's gross body has been destroyed. But now, after that, when possession happens, what happens is this possessing ghost is just the soul and the subtle body. They occupy some other gross body, and the person who is the original person in that body, that person becomes like the suppressed personality or the inhibited personality. So during the time of possession, the person functions completely different from the normal functioning. Whereas during the case of past life memories, we don't see such a radical disconnect between the personality. The person says, yes, you are my mother, but I have another mother. So yes, where is my other mother? So it's not that this person no longer recognizes the people in this lifetime. So you could say in general, possessions are characterized by replacement of the normal personality with some other personality, temporarily, of course. Whereas past life memories are characterized not by replacement, but something like a supplement. Yes, the child knows, okay, this is my mother, this is my father. He says, I lived another place. The child has some supplementary knowledge, which the child cannot have by normal means. So it's during possessions, a person will say, I am not this person, I am someone else. But during past life memory, the child doesn't say, I am not this person. He says, I am this person, but I was also that person. So there is no rejection of the present personality. Rather, so there is no rejection or replacement. It is rather a supplement, an extension of the normal personality. That's the understanding of, that's the key differentiation. So possessions are where a person behaves completely differently, denies their current personality itself, whereas in the past life memories, it says they acknowledge. The child often says, I am small now, but I was big earlier. So I'm a small child now, but I was an adult earlier. So they don't deny their present existence, but they say there's a dimension to their existence which is more also. Okay.
Thank you so much for the wonderful explanation. That was perfect. And how you could just pull up your slides and heard you've thought of this. It's just incredible. Thank you so much. And I apologize. I always like to take advantage because it's so hard to get a hold of you. So I slipped that in. And I had another question, but I can leave it to another time. I'm not sure about your time, but thank you so much.
Let's discuss it some other time. Thank you very much.
Hare Krishna.
Wish all of you a very happy Janmashtami. Shri Krishna Bhagavan ki jai. Shri Prabhupada ki jai. Gaur Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. Jai Gaur Premanande. Hari Hari Bol. Thank you, Angel Zitinanda. You're happy to be of service. And thank you for your comments. And Riya and Mataji and others. Hare Krishna.